Sweet Emotion from Aerosmith, one of the all-time classic riffs, written by the bass player Tom Hamilton. And it's got a very prominent bass figure throughout. And we'll take a look at it today. But I just wanted to say, if you've ever been in a band and you've covered this tune, even if you have two guitar players, and even if your lead player is playing through a vocoder, just like Joe Perry did, you may find it still sounds a little empty. It's missing something. Well, yeah, it probably is missing something. Probably because your band didn't have something called a vibra slap, or a marimba, or a bass marimba, or a sugar packet. So there's these things on YouTube for the last bunch of years called isolated tracks, right? And this started some years ago where people were putting up these things. They're the original studio recordings of all these famous tunes with just each part by itself, isolated, right? So you could hear just the bass part, just the guitar part, or whatever. And on some of these things, you can really hear things that you may not have noticed before. For example, for the intro, on the bass part, right, which is... Now, I've been playing it that way since I was 13 years old. But there was always something in there that bothered me. It was like, am I playing that wrong? And I mean, I've seen a million bass players play it the exact same way, but it never sounded right, exactly right with the recording. This is the reason why. When I found the isolated tracks for this tune, I'm going to listen to just the guitar parts with all this percussion in there. That's what I was hearing all these years. That little slide from G to A. It's not on the bass. It's on something called a bass marimba. If you know what a marimba is, it looks like a keyboard. It's a percussion instrument, like a xylophone almost. But it's got a kind of a wooden sound to it. I never even knew such a thing as a bass marimba existed. Okay, until recently. So I guess there is. I can't think of another song that ever used such a thing, but it's in this one. Okay, so what we're going to do is see now how the bass part relates to the guitar parts and all this percussion stuff. Here we go. Right. You can hear both the low, the bass marimba and the regular pitched marimba as well, playing all that stuff. Plus, like the shakers and stuff, which apparently it's not really a shaker in the beginning anyway. Steven Tyler's holding packets of sugar going like this. Who thinks of something like that? Anyway, let's get to the main part of the song. And by the way, just for you bass players, here's the main riff if you don't know it. And that's a classic example of a Mixolydian sound, right? Because that G, that flat 7. before we get into the verse, let's go over that bass line first. Real unique part. The guitars are playing that riff that goes D, A, and all that. But the bass doesn't do that at first. This is one of the great parts of the song that I really love, is that he waits to play that part to double the guitar until the very end, the last verse of the song. In between then, he's setting up all this sort of tension by playing this. 3, 4. So let's look at what that is. We've got octave A's, slide, G, A. And you know, that G and A kind of makes sense now when you hear from the intro, right? All right, let's do it with this song. And then on the chorus, the first chorus there, you see how the guitar comes in and sort of doubles, it sort of mimics what the bass line is doing. So that's a nice little contrast from the beginning of the song when the bass was playing that high riff, and then the guitars were just sort of floating, you know, over that part. So let's go to the second. Did you hear that? You could hear it even in the chorus there. That bass marimba thing. That's what I was talking about. See, so he saved the doubling of the main guitar riff until the end like that. And when that comes in, it's such a kick in the ass because it really just pushes the whole groove forward. And it just sounds so down and dirty kind of thing, right? All right, let's finish up the song. So, throughout the entire performance, right, you could hear all these little things, all the percussion and whatnot. And, it's interesting because sometimes great songs are so simple. They're just a couple of parts, and that's all you needed. Let the song roll, right? Sometimes you already have great parts like you do on the guitar, bass, drum groove is great, vocals are great. But, sometimes that's not enough, at least for some artists. They think, all right, well, we got that. Can we make it even better? And some of these classic tunes, classic rock tunes and whatnot, a lot of times that's the secret to them, is that, yeah, they had a great foundation already. They had a great tune. They had a great performance of it. But there was this thing at times where that wasn't enough. They wanted more, and for whatever the reason was, whatever their motivations were, a lot of times that paid off, because some of these tunes, they're timeless, right? And some of the elements that make them timeless are in the arrangements and how they thought of all these little extra things. It's like the icing on the cake, right? But as I started out this video by saying, if you've ever played this tune in a cover band or whatever, you might be missing some of these things, right? If you've ever watched Aerosmith themselves play this tune live, they don't have any of those things going on. It still sounds great, don't get me wrong. But that studio version, something special about it. And like I said, I've played this tune for almost 40 years now. I always knew there was something was missing somewhere. Now I could hear it. Well, I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel, and there'll be more videos like this to come. Thanks for watching.